Magnificat anima mea Domino.
Do you have any scruples over the title Co-Redemptrix?
None.
Okay.
In fact, it's completely part of the tradition. In fact, one time I was actually looking at a missal that was several hundred years old, and there was actually that feast that was actually still in there. So it's been around. So it's not, and there's been a lot of scholarship to show that this has been the consistent teaching of the church and of the consistent belief of Christians that she is the co-redemptrix. Obviously, she does it as in through the power of Christ, of course. Christ is the Redeemer, and then she participates in that as, especially as the mediatrix of all grace. So that means that those of us today are going to be receiving those graces through her, and so and our redemption is going to be wrought through her as a result of it. But I think that also the co-redemptrix is, I'd like to see them actually define that at some point, just to put an end to the discussion. Even though for me, I think it could be easily argued. It would take a bit of work, but I think it could easily be argued that it's part of the that it, at least in relationship to the theologians, that is, those of the theological schools from 1100 to 1750, it was considered, this is part of the faith, that this is actually what she is. I think that could be argued. It would take a bit of work to do it. So my own position is that it's actually part of the faith, but it just hasn't been defined yet. So I'd like to see that actually happen.
Beautiful, yes. And I remember reading Saint Maximus the Confessor. He wrote the life of Our Lady, and at the stage of the Passion, I think he was writing in the 8th century or something like that. When it gets to the stage of the Passion, he's like, it's, even though I don't think he uses the word specifically, the spirituality is like there, and it's really, really strong. I was really amazed and quite blown away. So even in the Church Fathers, even in Saint Irenaeus, he compares Our Lady. He says Our Lady is the new Eve, and what Eve kind of did wrong by disobedience, Our Lady healed through her obedience. So that's again a pointer to the.
Yeah. In fact, if you look at all the sins that Eve committed, so the fathers say that she committed 5 sins, although in the book I'm working on right now, I'm going to show that there was a lot more involved than that even. But but literally she goes through everything that inverts everything that Eve would have done, right? So, and this is one of the reasons why her co-redemption, I think it was Cardinal Mary Duval actually referred to her suffering at the foot of the cross. It is her title of Our Lady of Sorrows, but her that particular mystery of her life, through which, of course, she becomes the co-redemptrix, etc. He said is actually the most important of all the Marian doctrines. Ultimately.
Wow, beautiful!
Because it's because of that God then retroactively makes her immaculate. It's because of that, and so it all stems from that. Just as all the graces, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament, flow back in time through the Passion of Christ. Of course, that is the source of grace, and it's the same thing in relationship to Our Lady. So he refers to that as the primary doctrine of Our Lady, not necessarily the one which that the church is defined and stuff like that. It doesn't belittle the Immaculate Conception. It's actually like the fulfillment of the Immaculate Conception.
And Father, just to conclude the discourse on the co-redemption, this is a kind of, I guess maybe you can't answer this, but do you think that the proclamation of the 5th dogma, which we're all praying for and we're trying to advance with, we have a quarterly magazine. I was meant to bring it here and show it to you, but I forgot. Show it to the viewers, but they can find it on our website. But I'm wondering whether you think that this could hasten the triumph of the Immaculate Heart by honoring Our Lady with this, what Cardinal Mary Duval said is perhaps even the greatest Marian doctrine.
Yeah, I definitely, I think it could hasten it. My own impression, I'm not saying, and I'll leave it at that. It doesn't have any more than that. My own impression is that it's going to be the crowning, defining dogma in this sense. I personally think we're going to go through the chastisement, and we know that it's after the chastisement that the reign of the Immaculate Heart occurs. And so that's when Our Lady is going to be flooding the world with grace, and it's at that point that it'll have clarity, and then the church will declare it in gratitude to her for what she's done. And so that's my own That's my own. If I had to say this is what I think would happen, that's what's going to happen. But on the other hand, we might be able to climb our way out of our situation right now a little better if they actually did it now.
Sure. No, thank you very much for that. And hopefully part of that crowning moment will also be the canonization of Cardinal Mary Del Val. We can pray for that too.
Yeah.